Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Erica. Thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh, and you can give us a call tonight at 412-575-2600. And Chris Adamski from the Trib, the Steelers beat writer from the Trib, is joining me from Studio A, and we're going to be talking about the Steelers in a little bit. But I want to start off with the Buccos. Coming off a big series. No one expected them to beat the Phillies, but they did it, coming back in game one. Really no chance here today. O'Neal Cruz, you saw, made a bunch of errors. But, you know, my big question, I know this is something that we talk about on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown tonight, is why didn't we see Skeens or Keller in this first series?
Yeah, and if you're thinking about the starting pitching performance they got both today and Friday was real subpar. Now, they won, of course, Friday, but it wasn't because of the starting pitching. The starting pitching is probably even worse on Friday than it was today. You talk about having no chance, but the offense was good enough, and they had that great comeback. But they got the good start from Luis Ortiz. Yeah, this is just them saving innings, saving pitches for their top-notch starters, for Paul Skeens. The Mitch Keller thing is kind of surprising. He's enough of a veteran now. He pitched almost 200 innings last season. You'd think he'd be sort of immune from that type of thing, but they're almost like skipping a start of their two best starters right now. They're preserving them from late in the season. And I guess, they have them against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are more important by the fact that they're not going to catch the Phillies. The Pirates aren't, but they might catch the Cardinals for a wild card. The Cardinals are a division rival. In theory, there's competing with them for the NL Central as well. So, in that way, it makes sense. But, yeah, you could have had Skeens pitch against both of them if you really wanted to. But if that happened, they'd probably shut him down mid-September. So, whatever it takes to have him available if they make the playoffs, which is looking a little far.
Well, if it wasn't for Skeens, you could have Keller pitch against both of them, too. If he started, he only pitched 3 innings before they went to the All-Star break. He had a week off. That's what the All-Star break is for, right? If you're not in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I don't know that's an odd scenario, again, because Mitch Keller, he's not a rookie. He's not on a pitch limit or innings limit, at least not anything unreasonable. He was a 200-inning guy last year. He was in the top 5 or 6 in the league in innings pitched. So I don't know if there's something physically wrong with him, or they're a little bit worried about him or not. But yeah, and that's the other thing, too. Maybe people talked about the 2 veteran lefty starters. The Pirates may be able to flip them at the deadline or get something out of them. Right now, I don't know. I mean, you don't hate that it's one start for one of them at least, but Marco Gonzalez and Martin Perez are both right now, to the point where I don't know if either one of them will keep their spot once the rest of the rotation gets healthy. If and when Jared Jones comes back, Bradley Folder, those type of guys. If you can't depend on your 30-something starters, then it's time to maybe make a change there.
Chris, I like it. Send them both in a package deal. Martin Gonzalez. You get them both, right?
Yeah.
All right. We'll continue our conversation about the Pirates after the break. I want to talk to you a little bit about the trade deadline. What do you do now? Because in the grand scheme of things, taking 2 out of 3 against the Phillies is good, right? They need to do the same thing against the Cardinals, a crucial 3-game series starting tomorrow. We'll continue our conversation about the Pirates and also get in the Steelers, because it's a big week for the Steelers, and this is the guy you want to talk to. They report on Wednesday, but we got to report to a break right now. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our GMC tweet of the night. This is from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Congratulations to Jim Leyland on being inducted in the Baseball Hall of Fame this afternoon. Can't wait to officially welcome you to the Pirates Hall of Fame on August 24th. So a big day for Jim Leyland. I don't know if you heard the speech, Chris, and I don't know if you guys out there heard it. Phenomenal. You couldn't have asked for anything better. The one thing that was interesting where he pointed out that he wished he could have won one for the city of Pittsburgh. I think so does every Pirates fan, because you had the team, you had Bonds, Van Slyke, Bonilla, you had the pitching, and they could have won it if it wasn't for maybe a Jose leaned error there in the late in the game in that last one.
Yeah, Richie, we've talked before on this show, probably talked to him in person about how we're roughly the same age and have the same kind of experience. We grew up in Pittsburgh and the fandom, and that's the one thing in our lifetimes we haven't seen is a Pirates World Series. This, of course, of the Steelers and the Penguins and the other successes, even Pitt with being #1 and all that stuff in basketball. But the Pirates They had a great 3-year team there, and just couldn't get over the hump. 2 Game 7 losses in a row. Had the lead in the series in '91, and of course everybody knows the story of 1992. And yeah, Jim Leyland became a Pittsburgh guy, and he's always been an emotional guy. Always been a guy not afraid to cry or want to cry in situations like that. And it happened in his speech, and you really feel like it was genuine. I've only seen snippets of the speech, but he's been really fantastic. It looks like so far. So I really do. Normally, you not want to sit down and watch an entire speech, maybe, but I think I will definitely this one.
Yeah, Barry Bonds was there in Cooperstown. It might be his only shot at getting into Cooperstown. I still think he's a Hall of Famer and deserves to be one.
I think someday he'll be.
Yeah, I think someday he will be too.
Yeah.
Let's go out to Jerry out in Beaver Falls. How you doing, Jerry?
Yes, I have a thought on the reason why Keller and Skeens didn't pitch against Philadelphia. Knowing that when Philadelphia comes to town, they pretty much get a sellout. If they save Skeens and Keller for St. Louis, and they get bigger crowds.
Jerry, I get that, and I understand that, and that's the economics of everything, but it's a stupid reason for, I'm not making fun of you. You might be right, but if that's the reason that the Pirates did this, it's dumb. I mean, you're not basing it off of attendance. You're basing it off of winning, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I mean, Skeens could have theoretically pitched the first game Friday night against Philadelphia and the final game of the series against St. Louis. That would be the 5th day if they weren't at all worried about innings. Then you could have got 2 gates in one homestand from Skeens. But you're right, they sold out. They were sold out this weekend anyway. Maybe I'm naive. I don't think at all that played into it whatsoever.
Jerry could be right, though. I wasn't getting mad at his call.
Yeah.
He made a good point, and that's typical Pirates. I hope that's not the case, though.
Yeah, like I said, maybe I'm just naive. I don't know, but I want to choose to believe that in decisions like that, although it is kind of, Skeens made his debut at home. It seems like he's pitched more often at home over time. So I guess and if you're going to skip his start.
He would have pitched at home twice, though, right? Hey, Chris, look, I get what you're saying, and I understand. You give the rookie a little bit of rest. I totally get it. But Keller, that's the one that boggles my mind a little bit, because they pulled him out after 3 innings that game heading into the All-Star break. He had all week off, and then he doesn't pitch until Monday. So maybe something was bothering him that they didn't make us aware of.
Yeah, he's essentially going to go 3 innings over a 13-day span,
yeah,
or 14-day span even that he pitches. So they decided that whether it was innings preservation or something that's bothering him or whatever it is, it's clearly they manipulated this, and that's something they predicted. Not in a negative way, even for whatever reason they decided that they wanted to skip his start or give him extra time. And I guess if he's really strong, and there was last year he was really good up until around July and August. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe they're trying to avoid that. I don't know. It's probably a stretch, but if he pitches well on the stretch, we'll forget all about him missing not pitching in this series against the Phillies.
Hey, we should forget about it anyways. They won 2 out of 3.
They did.
So
Exactly.
No matter how they win, it counts as a W. 2 W's and an L, and if you can take 2 out of 3 every series down the stretch, they're going to be in pretty good shape for the postseason. Let's go out to Al in Clarion. How you doing, Al?
Hey, Richie, how are you?
Good, thanks for calling.
Seriously, you just said it yourself. They won 2 out of 3. Who cares how they did it, who pitched, whoever? The bottom line is they won 2 out of 3. Sometimes I think, you guys in the media try to parse things too much. I'm going to trust their baseball operations people for the most part on what they're doing. They won 2 out of 3.
So, Al, did you trust what they've been doing the last 5 years? Huh? Have you been trusting what they've been doing the last 5 years, 6 years?
No, I've been one of their biggest critics. But
Okay.
I'm saying it worked out. Okay.
It hasn't worked out the last 6 years, though.
All right.
So of course we should be skeptical.
Rich.
That's all I'm saying. I get your point, Al. But I'm allowed to be skeptical. There's a reason for them not doing it, and I get it. It's probably rest. But if it is the economics of the game, that's stupid. And they won 2 out of 3. So now we're in hindsight. Yeah, we can't be too critical. But people maybe wanted to see Skeens pitch or a Keller pitch. I don't want to be overly critical, Chris, because they took 2 out of 3. But the fact is they didn't pitch those guys in this series.
Yeah, if they would have gotten swept, we'd have a lot different conversation right
and
now.
They could have easily lost 2 out of 3, and maybe they should have lost 2 out of 3.
Friday night, they should have, by the starting pitching performance, they should have lost. That's for sure. Should have lost Friday night, and it would have been 2 out of 3. I just think the point I want to make, though, is just I don't like to necessarily criticize Derek Shelton or Ben Cherington or Pirates baseball ops or whatever, because this is every team across baseball pretty much is resting their starters, limiting innings, ramping guys up, giving them skipping starts, things like that. And we could talk about it, we can debate it, we talk about it on the showdown as well, and that's fine. And it frustrates me every time. I don't know. It's like we should be trying to win as an organization. If you're the Pirates or any team, you should be saying, "Oh, there were 4 days off for an All-Star break. That's great. Now we can put our best pitchers back again, back to back to back. We can essentially skip our poorer starters and put our best starters out there more often." That's what a logical person to me would do. But for whatever, the science and the people are paid a lot of money, they decided the rest and the recovery and the load management and all that stuff. And this is what happens. And that's just the reality of sports. It's not just a Pirates thing that we can get mad at the Pirates about. Is kind of my point.
Yeah, Al from Clarion just said it. And I always say this too. You got to trust with the people that know more than us, right? They're there. They're coaches. You have to trust the Pirates management that they do know better, but we can question them because we should question what they've done the last few years, especially ownership. They didn't put this. They haven't been transparent about what they've been doing. They haven't put this team in a good spot to win the last few years. So it's frustrating to be a Pirates fan. And we can transition into the Steelers. We can question what they do. They know better than us, and we're up there more than anyone covering this team. And we questioned what they did with the quarterback situation last year, and we were right. They should have put Mason Rudolph in before they went back to Mitch Keller. That's our job, is to question what they do, Chris.
No, yeah, you're right. And I'll go back to certainly. I don't think it was the case, but you're right. If it was the case that there was financial decisions or ticket selling this went into the decision making about who to start when, then that's a malpractice for running an organization for baseball ops. And yes, especially you and Mark Cabali, I think deserve a lot more credit for Mason Rudolph last year saving the Steelers season and getting them in the playoffs. But we'll stop tooting our horns about that.
All right, well, speaking of the Steelers, they report on Wednesday. We'll both be there Thursday, Friday, and for the next 3 weeks. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on the quarterback position. It's Russell Wilson's job to lose, but I don't think no matter what he does, I don't think he's losing this job, Chris.
Yeah, he's going to be taking first-team reps from pretty much beginning to end of camp. I don't see any scenario where else he'd be surpassed. Now, he'll have I don't say short leash, but I could, once the season starts, kind of all bets are off. If things are going real sour that first month and the offense is bad and Russell Wilson's bad, then they won't be afraid to make a change, that's for sure. But I can't even imagine how bad Russell Wilson would have to be and how good Justin Fields would have to be. Richie, you were there throughout organized team activities and minicamp. I know there's this narrative, and I get it. They both were starters last year. Justin Fields theoretically has a higher ceiling right now in terms of where you could, at this stage of Russell Wilson's career, Justin Fields, in theory, could be a really good quarterback here. That's what people, he was drafted highly. But there's no indication that the Steelers are thinking that way to start the 2024 season. And we'll see what happens. We had this discussion that we just referenced, Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky starting games in December. Who knows what happens when we get to there? It's an eternity from now. But Russell Wilson will be the starter throughout the preseason and training camp and when the regular season begins. I
don't know what kind of short leash he's going to have. I mean, like you said, what's he have to do? I think he's going to have I don't know what. I think he's going to have a longer leash, right? I mean, I personally think if things go the Steelers' way, that they just want Justin Fields to learn behind Russell Wilson and then move into that starter's role the next couple years, and maybe you have to pay him at some point. I mean, I guess if Russell Wilson has a great year, maybe that changes that philosophy. But I just think that they're prepared to, kind of like with Kenny Pickett, it doesn't matter what he does. I guess he would have to be like 0-4, right?
Yeah, if the Steelers maybe start 0-4, it would have to take a bad team, even if Russell Wilson is just, average or middling or even below average, and the Steelers are still 2-2 or whatever. I don't think they'll make a change. That's kind of out of character for the Steelers. So they'd have to have a bad record and bad performance by Russell Wilson, I think, before the plug would get pulled on that. And, you kind of worry about what happens in 2025 when you get to the next spring. There's a lot of different ways this could play out. I guess as I've said, the worst scenario, I think, for the Steelers' perspective and their long-term building plans is Russell Wilson is just okay enough to keep the job, and the Steelers are just okay enough to be in the playoff race and maybe not make it. But it's like, do you want to commit to him next year then as a 36-year-old? But then you didn't see Justin Fields play all year, so you can't really commit to him either. Then you're kind of stuck in no man's land again. But, they adjusted, as we all know, even in February, we thought we were all crazy if we thought that the Steelers quarterback room would not include Kenny Pickett and would include Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So and anything could happen. You worry about 2025 then, and the Steelers are for better, for worse, and competing and believing they can compete and make the playoffs this year and you take your chances there in the postseason, I guess.
Are they going to need another receiver to make the playoffs? I mean, I guess that's the big question.
Yeah. The question is, where do you get that receiver? How you find that receiver that you could actually use? They're running out of options pretty much, unless something really falls in their lap. It's hard, especially at receiver, to find. I don't know how you're going to necessarily find a guy that becomes available late in camp, a guy that was cut. I mean, let's say there's a relatively big name that gets cut for whatever reason, I guess.
Are they better than Van Jefferson, though? I
Yeah.
mean, who's going to get cut that might be better than that?
Yeah, so it would take sort of a very middling camp from the Van Jeffersons, and they have the quantity that you figure maybe one of them stands out, whether it be Van Jefferson. Remember, he was a number 2 receiver on a Super Bowl winning team 3 years ago. Now, it's 3 years ago, but he was. Roman Wilson, people have thought of projecting him could be that in the future, but is he ready for that as a rookie? You could talk yourself into a lot of options here. Scotty Miller, whatever you want to say, Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't want to bet on any one of those individuals necessarily to be able to do that and step into that role to be a bona fide number 2 right away.
Yeah, I think Deontay Johnson would have solved that problem, right? I mean, if they wouldn't have made that trade. All right, we got to take a break. Back in a couple minutes. Stay right there.